Seniors, let me ask you something important. What if your refrigerator, the appliance you trust to keep food safe, is actually damaging your health every single day? It sounds strange, I know. We've been taught our whole lives that refrigeration is always better. Colder means safer, colder means fresher. But modern science tells a very different story. Hidden inside that cold box are common foods that react negatively to refrigeration, not just in taste or texture, but in ways that affect digestion, inflammation, nutrient absorption, and long-term health. And here's the concerning part. More than 99% of adults over 60 refrigerate these foods daily, completely unaware of what cold storage does to them. Some researchers now believe that improper food storage may quietly contribute to digestive problems, nutrient deficiencies, chronic inflammation, and even cognitive decline, especially in seniors. Today we're going to clear the confusion. In this video, I'll walk you through foods you should never refrigerate and explain the simple, safer way to store them. Please stay until later in the video, because one of these foods surprises almost everyone. Everything you'll hear today is based on peer-reviewed research, not opinions or trends. Before we begin, let me ask you, where are you watching from? How old are you? And have you ever noticed food tasting strange or losing flavor after refrigeration? Write it in the comments. I read them, and your experience helps others. Now, let's begin. Let's start with one of the most misunderstood foods in the kitchen: potatoes. When you put potatoes in the refrigerator, you trigger a chemical reaction called cold-induced sweetening. Cold temperatures convert potato starch into sugar. That alone is not ideal. But here's where it becomes more serious. When refrigerated potatoes are later cooked at high temperatures, baked, fried, or roasted, those sugars react with amino acids and form a compound called acrylamide. Acrylamide is classified by international health organizations as a compound that may increase long-term health risk. A study from the University of Idaho tested hundreds of potato samples and found that refrigeration increased sugar content by up to 300% in just 2 weeks, 3 times more sugar without you adding anything. Cold storage also damages the potato's cellular structure. The texture changes. The flavor becomes oddly sweet. Many people notice their mashed potatoes tasting off and never know why. So how should potatoes be stored? They do best in a cool, dark, dry place, ideally around 45 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. A pantry, cellar, or even a cardboard box in a closet works well. Potatoes should never be stored in plastic bags, because plastic traps moisture and causes rot. And one more important point most people don't know: potatoes should be stored away from onions. Both release natural gases that cause the other to spoil faster. Stored properly, potatoes can last for months. In the refrigerator, they begin deteriorating in just weeks. Now let's talk about something almost everyone refrigerates without thinking: bread. It may sound counterintuitive, but refrigeration actually makes bread go stale faster, not slower. Food scientists explain this through a process called starch retrogradation. Cold temperatures cause starch molecules to crystallize and push moisture out of the bread. Researchers found that bread stored in the refrigerator becomes stale up to 6 times faster than bread kept at room temperature. Cold storage also destroys the natural aroma and flavor compounds in bread. That's why refrigerated bread often tastes flat or lifeless. The best way to store bread is at room temperature, in a bread box or paper bag that allows gentle airflow. If you won't finish a loaf within a week, freezing is a much better option than refrigeration. Slice the bread first, freeze it, and toast slices directly from frozen. This preserves texture and flavor far better than chilling. Now let's move to a food that people refrigerate out of habit, but never should: honey. Honey is one of the most stable foods on Earth. It naturally resists spoilage. But refrigeration causes honey to crystallize rapidly. That grainy texture isn't dangerous, but it changes how honey behaves in the body. More importantly, cold storage introduces moisture into the jar every time it's opened. Moisture reduces honey's natural antibacterial properties, the very reason it has been valued for centuries. Studies show that honey stored at low temperatures can lose a significant portion of its protective compounds. Honey should be stored at room temperature, tightly sealed, and away from direct sunlight. If honey crystallizes, it can be gently warmed in water and restored without damage. And one more thing most people don't realize: darker honey contains more antioxidants, and refrigeration damages those antioxidants more severely than in lighter honey. Now let's talk about something many people don't expect to hear: coffee. If you're storing coffee in your refrigerator, you're slowly destroying it. Coffee beans are extremely porous. They absorb odors and moisture from their surroundings, and your refrigerator is full of smells, leftovers, cheeses, sauces, foods you forgot were even there. Your coffee absorbs all of it. That's why refrigerated coffee often tastes strange, flat, or bitter. But odor absorption is only part of the problem. Refrigerators constantly change temperature. Every time you open the door, warm air enters and cold air returns. This creates condensation on coffee beans. That moisture accelerates oxidation and aging. Studies from specialty coffee research groups show that refrigerated coffee can lose more than half of its aromatic compounds in just 1 week. Those aromatic oils are where coffee's flavor and benefits come from. Cold temperatures also cause the oils inside the beans to solidify. When you grind cold beans, those oils don't extract properly during brewing. The result is weak, dull coffee, even if the beans were expensive. The correct way to store coffee is simple. Keep it in an airtight, opaque container at room temperature, away from light and heat. Buy smaller amounts and use them within 2 weeks. If you must store coffee long-term, freezing is actually better than refrigeration, but only if done correctly. Divide the coffee into portions, freeze once, and never refreeze. Repeated freezing and thawing causes irreversible damage. Now let's move on to something many seniors rely on for heart and immune health: garlic. Garlic does not belong in the refrigerator. Cold, damp conditions cause garlic to sprout. Those green shoots are bitter and can irritate the digestive system. Worse, moisture encourages mold growth. Some garlic molds produce compounds that are harmful to the body. Research from agricultural universities shows that refrigerated garlic can lose up to 50% of its allicin content within days. Allicin is the compound responsible for garlic's antibacterial, antiviral, and heart protective effects. Refrigeration doesn't just reduce garlic's flavor, it removes its health benefits. Cold storage also damages garlic's texture. It becomes soft, sticky, and difficult to work with. Garlic should be stored in a cool, dry place with good air circulation. A mesh bag or open basket works best. Never store garlic in plastic or sealed containers. Garlic needs to breathe. Properly stored, whole garlic can last for months. And here's something chefs know but rarely explain: room temperature garlic releases flavor more efficiently when cooked. Cold garlic produces weaker taste and aroma. Now let's talk about fruit, starting with bananas. Bananas are tropical fruit. They were never designed to handle cold. When you place bananas in the refrigerator, you cause what scientists call chilling injury. Cold temperatures damage the banana's cell membranes. The cells rupture, enzymes leak out, and the fruit begins breaking down from the inside. That black skin isn't just cosmetic. It's a sign of internal tissue damage. Studies show that bananas stored in the refrigerator can lose most of their vitamin C content within days. Refrigeration also stops bananas from developing beneficial compounds that normally increase as they ripen. Bananas should be stored at room temperature, ideally hanging so they don't bruise. If you want to slow ripening, separate them and wrap the stems. Once bananas are fully ripe, refrigeration can be used briefly. But the quality loss is real. A better option is peeling and freezing ripe bananas for smoothies. Now let's move to another storage mistake that causes serious waste: onions. Whole onions should never be refrigerated. Refrigerators are extremely humid environments. Onions need dry air. When onions are stored in the fridge, moisture penetrates the outer layers and creates ideal conditions for mold growth. Some molds that grow on onions produce toxins that are harmful, even in small amounts. Cold temperatures also convert onion starches into sugars, changing flavor and cooking behavior. That's why refrigerated onions often taste overly sweet and fail to caramelize properly. Onions should be stored in a cool, dry, well-ventilated place, never in plastic bags. And once again, keep onions away from potatoes. They accelerate each other's spoilage. Once an onion is cut, refrigeration is necessary, but whole onions should always stay out of the fridge. Now let's talk about tomatoes. This one surprises almost everyone. Refrigerating tomatoes doesn't just ruin their taste and texture. It permanently damages them at a genetic level. Researchers discovered that cold temperatures actually switch off the genes responsible for flavor and nutrient production in tomatoes. Once those genes shut down, they don't turn back on, even if you take the tomato out of the fridge and let it warm up. That's why refrigerated tomatoes never taste right again. They become watery, grainy, and bland. But here's what matters most for seniors. Tomatoes are one of the richest natural sources of lycopene, a powerful antioxidant that supports heart health and helps protect against certain cancers. Cold storage dramatically reduces lycopene availability and destroys the enzymes needed to absorb it. So even the nutrients that remain become useless to your body. Under a microscope, refrigerated tomatoes show ruptured cell walls caused by ice crystal formation. The structure is destroyed from the inside. Tomatoes should always be stored at room temperature, stem side down. This prevents moisture from entering and slows bacterial growth. Keep them out of direct sunlight, but not sealed in containers or plastic bags. They need air. If you have too many ripe tomatoes, the best option is to cook them and freeze the sauce. Cooking actually increases lycopene availability, and freezing preserves it safely. Now we've reached the most damaging refrigeration mistake of all: avocados. What refrigeration does to avocados is far worse than most people realize. Avocados are rich in healthy fats, especially oleic acid, which supports brain health, joint function, and nutrient absorption. Cold temperatures trigger oxidation of these fats, turning them from beneficial into harmful compounds. Research shows that refrigerated avocados can lose up to 90% of their antioxidant activity in just a few days. That includes vitamin E, one of the most important nutrients for aging cells. But it gets worse. Cold storage activates enzymes that break down the avocado from the inside. Cell walls collapse, fibers separate from fats, texture becomes stringy, watery, and bitter. Once this happens, it cannot be reversed. The creamy structure is gone forever. Unripe avocados should be stored at room temperature with good airflow. To speed ripening, place them in a paper bag with a banana. Once ripe, refrigeration should only be used briefly, and only if absolutely necessary. A better strategy is buying avocados at different ripeness stages so you always have one ready. If you cut an avocado and need to save half, leave the pit in, brush the surface with lemon juice, and store it in an airtight container. Now take a moment and think about this. These storage mistakes aren't small. They affect digestion, inflammation, heart health, and even brain function. For seniors, every nutrient matters. Refrigeration was meant to preserve food, not silently destroy it. When used incorrectly, your refrigerator becomes a nutrient killer. By simply storing these foods the right way, you protect their full nutritional power. That means better digestion, better energy, better cognitive support, and better overall health. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these foods have you been refrigerating for years without knowing the damage? And which one are you going to stop refrigerating starting today? Share your experience in the comments. Your story could help someone else protect their health before it's too late. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.